Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Open Up Live Talk Show. My name is Sivam Velaidam, and I am the founder and president at Voice Women 360. Voice Women 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020 in London, Ontario, Canada, dedicated to supporting men and boys through life challenges. We align with the International Men's Day movement and its 6 pillars, which promote the well-being of men and boys worldwide. Open Up creates a safe, inclusive space for people from all walks of life to share their life journeys, challenges, and triumphs. The program airs on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, featuring one guest per episode. Before I introduce our special guest for today, I would like to review our disclaimer. We would like to remind everyone that Voice of Men 360 is committed to promoting peaceful harmony in all our interactions. The views and opinions shared by our speakers are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Voice of Men 360. Please note that our content is not a substitute for professional medical or therapeutic advice. If you are struggling with personal challenges, we strongly encourage you to reach out to a qualified expert. For questions or concerns about today's episode or any of our content, feel free to email us at info@voiceomen360.org. Today we have an amazing guest all the way from Ireland. Nice to meet you, Mr. Joe Sheppard. But before I bring you in, introduce you about yourself. But I want to give a big announcement for you guys, especially Canadian public. Canada's men and boys health strategy. The government of Canada is engaging provincial and territorial governments, Indigenous partners, and key stakeholders to develop a men and boys health strategy. The goal is to create supportive and safe environments, challenge harmful stereotypes, reduce stigma, and encourage men of all ages to seek help when they need it. Improving the health of men and boys is a shared effort. The factors that lead to poorer health outcomes for men and boys are complex and interrelated and do not begin in adulthood. Join the conversation. Your voice is important. Complete the questionnaire by June 1st, 2026. Organization and experts are encouraged to submit their brief responding to the questions. Please do so. As I said earlier, we have an amazing guest today, Joe Sheppard. He is a founder of Livestream Solutions from Ireland. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for joining.
No problem at all. Great to be on, and an honor to be on, and anything that we can discuss that helps men and boys find a balance in their life has got to
Absolutely.
be important.
I just want to remind you guys, today we will be focusing on the journey, what shapes us as men, adversity, pressure, and learning to navigate it, finding your voice and rebuilding confidence, creating balance, the 5 pillars, and reset thinking. Let's dive into the questions. So, when you hear the phrase being a man today, what is the very first thought or feeling that comes to your mind?
I think the first word that comes to mind, Svam, is responsibility. But very quickly after that, confusion, if I'm honest. I think a lot of men today are genuinely trying to do the right thing, to show up, to provide, to support, to be present. But the reality is the rules have changed quite a bit over time. What used to be seen as strength doesn't always land the same way now. The word toxic masculinity is thrown around too much. And what's being asked of men, I think, today is much broader in some ways and more complex than it was for our parents and our grandparents. But we're still conditioned by their thinking and what we learn from them. So you've got this situation where men are carrying pressure, men and boys, in fact, are carrying pressure, trying to adapt trying to be better, but not always sure how to express themselves without feeling like they're getting it wrong. And I think that creates a lot of internal tension, because on the one hand, you know, we want to do well by the people around us, but on the other, we're still figuring out what that actually looks like in today's world. So for me, being a man today isn't about having all the answers. It's about more learning how to navigate the space and a bit more, with a bit more honesty and awareness. And the sooner we can learn that, I think life becomes lighter, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It is very true, because in the last couple of decades or so, it's changing rapidly, and inside and outside. So a lot of people, especially men, a lot of confusions, a lot of struggles, a lot of pressures, and a lot of challenges we had to go through. It doesn't matter which ethnic group, or it's across the board, right?
Yeah.
It's all around that we can see. And the sad part is, I just want to emphasize this point earlier. If you look at the ratio suicide, it's 78 to 80% around the world. So it's really we are in a bad situation though. So let's look at the boys right now. Like many boys grow up hearing "be strong," but rarely "be open." How do you think this shapes men emotionally later in life?
I think for a long time, strength was defined as just getting on with things, carrying whatever came your way and not really talking about it as a man or a boy. There's a value in that, because resilience does matter. And like my time, I spent 30 years in the British forces working with the UN and NATO, and my time doing that gave me a lot of structure and discipline, but it didn't really give me the language to understand what was going on inside me internally. I could feel those things, if that makes sense, but I couldn't correlate, and I certainly couldn't express it openly, and it wasn't really allowed or expected to. So you become very good at functioning, but not always very good at understanding yourself. And I think that's what happens as boys grow into men and men grow older. We were taught how to carry that weight of life and pressures and everything, but not how to put it down. Now, over time, that builds. So for me, real strength isn't choosing one or the other. It's knowing when to stand firm. And I think we would serve our men and our boys better in schools and in life. So organizations like yours, I think, are so genuinely so important, because it's knowing as a boy into a man when to stand firm and when to open up. And that balance is really where things start to shift, if you can ever learn to do that. And I think that's one of the things that affects men, boys into men, and then into life. And it's really important from an early age that I'd rather see stuff like this on the curriculum at school than I would, learning 3 blind mice on the recorder.
Absolutely. The most important thing is that I think the key word is verbalizing. We don't know.
Massively.
It doesn't matter which age group you take, seniors or middle-aged men, or even young boys. We don't know how to verbalize our emotional challenges. That's really put us in a situation. A lot of people is still going through a lot of challenges, and then they cannot share. They don't know how to share, or even though there are other stigmas and other situations, but we don't know how to say it out. When we compare between male and female, they have any kind of ways that they can share it, but men is not. So it is very true. And then the only good thing I can say is that in the last 5 years or less than 5 years, it's a little bit changing. A lot of people are started talking, but it's not enough. We need more open talks though. So from your
just one other thing there. Even nowadays, men like us are acutely aware of what should happen, and we encourage and we tell others to open up, but we're still not necessarily good at it ourselves. So we know that we have to do that, but there's still, I think, what is that conditioning for us? I mean, okay, you're a young man compared to me. You're 11 years younger than me. But seriously, we are still both from an era where that conditioning came from our parents and our grandparents. Excuse me, didn't make them bad people. They were inherently good people because that's what they'd learned. I mean, it's only 100 years ago that just that, you know, I remember this week I'm a big fan of period drama, so Downton Abbeys and things like that. And I watched one this week. It was a short 5-part thing. It's like my escapism, called Cranford, and it was based in the 19th century, so the middle 1800s. And even then, the children were not allowed to go to school. They weren't allowed to learn, and the parents said, "No, you don't need to do that. Get into the field. That's good enough for us. We know our place." And that condition, and that's 150 years ago or so. That's not a long time. And I still feel that we are conditioned in some ways, in lots of ways, that we are stifled in that, you know, being able to verbalize, as you quite rightly point out, what we're feeling in that. And it's shocking still, really, if you think about it.
Oh, it's really, it's not, in a way it is shocking, but at the same time, it's when we realize, and then when we hear a lot of, you know, stories or experience, our own experiences. But nowadays, it's very slowly, very slowly, we can understand. Well, it's very true. You said, you know what, even ourselves, we don't open that much. It is true, because that's the way our mind is conditioned, right? For many years, right? We're talking about 50 years, though. Right, so it's still we are conditioned, and then we are trying to coming out, you know, as much as possible, but it will take some time. But for the new generation, younger generation, we really want to give them space. Okay, you know what, at least they can start from the younger age, so they can be more flexible, more, you know, they can share the emotional challenges, you know. It's absolutely, yeah. So, from your own journey, what were the defining moments that changed how you understood masculinity, vulnerability, and responsibility?
I think for a long time, I thought being dependable meant being silent. I think all of those things summed up into that one word, dependable, and it meant being silent. Just getting on with things and not really sharing what was going on. You know, my background gave me a lot of resilience, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and the ability to handle pressure. But a lot of things were just pushed down, compartmentalized. That's a very big word we use in the military as a veteran. You know, we compartmentalize an awful lot of things. But over time, that catches up with you, and it certainly caught up with me later on in my life. You know, and I was diagnosed with PTSD, but a number of things had to come out for that to happen, because I was, as a natural empath, but an overthinker, I was naturally always attuned to looking after other people and making sure they were okay. So I would then park all of those things that had happened to me in my life, yeah, then it comes out. So I've had moments where, you know, those things have come to a head, both mentally and physically, and you're forced to take a proper look at how you're living your life. So there was a point where I generally thought I might not be here. End of May 2021, I was in the UK for the funeral of my late ex-wife. The afternoon before, I was at the hotel. I knew I was ill, called 911, and I had 17 minutes when I was hanging in the game. But whoever is looking after us up there decided that, you know, I was still to stay. But those things, all of the things that happened in my life, all came to a fruition during those 17 minutes. You know, and that really allows you to have a checkup. Check up from the neck up, we say. You know, everything becomes very clear very quickly. You realize what matters and what doesn't, and more importantly, how you need to change yourself. Now, as we said before we came on air, even though we know we need to change, the process of being able to do that is not always that easy. It's more about awareness, understanding myself better, being present, and being honest enough to, I suppose, to adjust off when something's not right. And that's ongoing. That's something, you don't fix that once. It's like finding a balance in your life. You don't fix that once. It's something you must keep working at. And I think that's, Devam, is what I've learned over some of those challenging times in my life.
A lot of areas which touched on that, and then especially with your own personal story, thank you for sharing. And it is very hard at the same time. It's not easy, as you said. It's look like easy, but it's not easy. But however, we had to deal with that. We had to face it. So when we come across any kind of like a situations, but men on the other hand, it's very tough for them, especially those who are vulnerable and they don't know how to deal with those situations, right? That's why we are creating this kind of a space, and then this kind of like peer support groups and things like that. So at least we can slowly we can start the conversation and see how we can support each other, right? That's next question leads to why do you think so many men choose silence during difficult season, instead of asking for help, even they know, let's say I'm in a big trouble, or in deeply struggling with something, but I'm not ready to seek for help. What do you think?
Again, I think that we mentioned this, both of us mentioned this a couple of times. It's conditioning. You see, I think staying silent is what we have passed on to one another, passed down from our grandparents to our parents to us. Fortunately, people like ourselves are passing on to our next generation now that it's not a weakness. You don't have to stay silent, but I think the silence comes from that conditioning. It's easier, and some ways it's easier to help somebody else than to try and help yourself. I mean, a lot of men grow up believing that they're supposed to hold things together, not to burden others, not to show much emotionally, and that becomes the default. But that then builds up over time, as we've said before. Even when something's not right, the instinct is really still to deal with it yourself. Now, again, I've experienced that. What happens though over time is when we compartmentalize that, Savam, and when we keep all of that in, it has to come out at some point. So either something small can tip us over the edge massively, or for a lot of people, they will fall into what we call maladaptive practices. So gambling, eating, drinking and drugs, or sex. Because it's that release of dopamine, it's that serotonin, it's all of those short-termistic, and they are short-termistic releases that give us the feeling, and then you get the guilt, and then you get all of those other things. When you're processing things internally, instead of not actually talking about them, that's not the way we need to go. I do think, my friend, that for a lot of people, there's a fear of judgment, a fear of being misunderstood, even just not knowing how to put something into words, because you said before, we've never taught anybody how to verbalize that properly. So instead of expressing it, it stays internal. And as I say, then comes out in other ways: frustration, pressure, withdrawal, maladaptive practices. And that's when the silence becomes the default. And some of the strongest people I've known have taken their own lives. Because we thought they were strong. But the reality is, silence isn't strength. It's often merely short-term survival, without getting too heavy, but that's what happens. And there are people that I know who are some of the bravest people, warriors, and it got too much. And I think that isn't weakness. That must be the most difficult thing in the world, when you get to that point where you feel that there's nothing else, and all you want to do is close your eyes and make it all go away. How many boys and men feel like that? And how many come close to the edge of that cliff? This is why what you're doing and what your organization doing is so critical. And I thank you on behalf of everybody.
Thanks a lot. Yes, it is very true. Thank you for that, Yo. So going back to your, sharing, how we can break this silence from your own experience, at least, in nowadays, in the last, I would say, like, even after I came to this practice, or I would say, like, in this industry or in this sector, I have learned a lot of things, and then dealt with a lot of people. Um, I would say, like, online, offline too. Learn a lot of things, listening to a lot of stories. So how we can break this silence? How we can bring, at least, give them some sort of hope, in the sense, what, at least, what, there's something else you can do instead of being silent.
I think, you know what, sometimes we're looking for the golden nugget in life. But I think we should accept that we don't need to overcomplicate it. Sometimes in life, there's a thing called Pareto's principle. So 20% of what you do yields 80% of your results. So you should focus on that. I don't think probably you and your organization realize how important what you're doing. A couple of mental health groups through rugby that I sit in, or through the veterans groups that I sit with, those things, each of those small bits are doing the integral bit at that time, being present for somebody. I think sometimes it's identifying with somebody and being able to, say, listen, I've got a pal at the moment, for example, I won't say his name, but he is a really bloody hard worker in everything he does, and he's a real strong man, and I've seen him. He went really quiet on me over the last few weeks, and I knew there was something wrong because he's just not like that. So I just reached out and I eventually got hold of him, and he told me, what he was going through. And I said, you know where I am? He says, I know, but Joe, you've got loads going on as well. You got married a few weeks ago. You're trying to, the business is going off in a different way, and I didn't want to bother you. And that's what men do. We feel, strong men are the ones who become silent and then go to the point of no return. So those small things that a small mental health group is doing online for the veterans or for rugby, what you're doing, I think we just got to talk about it. There's a comedian called Jimmy Carr, who's very misunderstood, but he's very, very funny, an English comedian. And he talks a lot. So when he's doing his comedy shows, people will ask him questions, and he will find a message in there to give. And I think it's all of these type of things. It doesn't have to be something big, Sivam. It just has to be continued. And you see, I think one of the difficulties with the newest generation of boys and men coming through now is it's like, not to go left or right, because I don't do politics or religion anymore. I've seen enough of those on all sides. But there's 300 different genders. Does it make it right? Does it make it wrong? I think allowing people to find themselves, or giving them some guidance, I think that's the word. Openness and guidance to people, thought-provoke with them. There's nothing right or wrong in life. It's whether something works or doesn't work for the individual. But we put people in compartmentalized boxes. You either believe in this politics, or you believe in that politics, or you go to university and you're going to do this for your life. Listen, small things matter. And sometimes just reaching out or saying to somebody, like I've got a pal in Canada. So after the show, for example, I'll say to him, Roy, this organization is there. It's a global organization, I know, but you're based in Canada. if he's the sort of person who would add value. He's an ex-British veteran as well. So it's those type of things where you're just passing on a nugget of information, and you never know when that might help somebody. Does that all make sense?
Absolutely. Time to time, it is very true, because we never know what other person, individual go through, right? Because
Absolutely.
until we check in, sometimes or most of the times, even though they don't tell us openly, but we can feel, we can sense that when we talk to them, right? So it's something going on. If some sort of different situation, or being silent, or no calls, or no nothing, and then it is true that even ourselves, sometimes we feel the same way, that you don't want to bother other people. You know what? Maybe they have more than what we have, what we are going through. So we don't want to bother with them. That's the way men think about that, right? So that's initially, in the initial part, we block ourselves, we stop ourselves, we don't want to seek any help or anything. But later on, it's going to explode and bottling up. It won't help you anyway. But the reality is that, at least whenever we feel that, as you call your buddy, your friend, at least we had to check in sometimes whenever possible. At least a small text or some simple call. You know what? Hey, even though you don't say it openly, I am there for you. But a call can make a big difference. So because time to time we see that even somebody is out there, whoever is watching on the other end, either one word or one sentence or the whole story can change their life. We never know, right? It is very important, though. Yeah.
It is, and like, this is why I love live streaming, okay? Because this is the next best thing to being able to being sat in a room with somebody. We know, excuse me, that there's people who watch my shows, whether they're rugby or business or whatever they are. It may be the only bit of engagement they get, and that live engagement is very, very important for people. But when we go back to those small things, I will pick up my phone. Somebody comes into my head, or I see something, like just before I came on the show, a friend of mine, she lost a friend today, and I saw her post on Facebook. So I sent her a WhatsApp message quickly and say, Nick, saw your post. How are you? She said a friend died from pancreatic cancer for 5 years. She'd grown up with them, blah, 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 blah. So great. Just reaching out, and I'll reach out to her again tomorrow. We'll have a proper chat. So small things like that. On excuse me, on WhatsApp now, you can do the little video note that very few people know about. So you can go to WhatsApp. So I will send a video, because it's the next best thing. I love live streaming. I will, if somebody sends me a message on Messenger, if I've got the time and I can, and I always try and make the time, then I will just video call them, and it surprises people immensely. And just that little bit of connection. We live in a world now where we've never been more connected technology-wise, but we are more disconnected as human beings, in my opinion. So these small things, I can't change the world. I've realized that. The 7 big giant global corporations who run everything and everybody. I can't change the world, but I can do my little bit for my fellow human beings. Looking past politics, looking past, excuse me, religion, looking past genders, looking past beliefs, just being there for somebody is really important. So the next time somebody crosses your mind, or somebody pops up on Facebook, or you get something, or your sixth sense will sometimes tell you that somebody will come into your mind and you think, I haven't spoken to them for a year. Get on the phone to them, send them a message. People are so busy. If they can't answer, then that's fine. They will get back to you. Most of the time when I call somebody on a video call, unexpected, they come back to me and go, big man, is everything okay? Yeah, but is everything okay with you? And that's important.
Very true, very true, Joe. one thing I want to add here, because you mentioned a couple of things. When we go back to our own videos and live stream, you know, um, episode and things like that, people always come back. Oh, you know what? We have a low on the views or low on subscribers and things like that. It doesn't matter what the number says, though, because at the end, our intention, our goal, our focus, our genuine focus is that at least one person, if we can serve, if we can change their mindset, if we can serve, if we can save one life at a time, it is more than enough. Because I tell you two stories. A couple of years back, one fellow from a different part of the world watching, searching for something, and then just somehow they end up with our channel, and then this young fellow was going into a different stage, and then probably at the end he was saved. The other thing is that just today, one guy, another guy was searching for something, and then he ended up with our Tamil language live talk show this morning, and then he reached out to me, and then we were talking. So we never know. It doesn't matter the number, like 1 million views or 100 views or even 10 views. Whoever is searching for something, that message will be delivered, or will reach out to them. So that's the way that's the way I look at it. Because end of the day, we cannot serve, we cannot change the whole world, as you said. Whatever we
I'm
can
so glad.
we can.
I'm so glad you brought up about the numbers and subscribers. We have lived through the last 5, 6, 10 years where everybody was talking about, oh, I need an influencer. No, you don't. I know there's an influencer I know. She's a nice lady, but she's got over 100,000 people and she has no engagement. I don't know where she's got numbers from, but she has absolutely no engagement whatsoever. And I'd rather have 100 people follow me, subscribers in my community, because those people in my community, they know me, they like me, they trust me, and they follow me, and that's important, and that's what we try and do with the rest. And you're absolutely spot on. Excuse me. We don't know who's watching us or what journey they're going through. And one quick story on that, and I'm glad you shared your story. And there's people who will watch us tonight and say, I wouldn't be as open as you two. We don't care. We're being open because that's our journey. Again, you've just said to me, how do we encourage people? By doing this. This is a small nugget, but it's so powerful. About 6 years ago, I did a live stream show on rugby, and it was for blind rugby, visually impaired, for a charity in the UK. We were doing the show, did it, and then lots of engagement, really good crack. It was important message that rather than just mainstream rugby, excuse me, to get the message about. So we cover visually impaired, we cover mixed ability rugby, we cover rugby across all levels because that's important too. Anyway, at the end of the show, I got a message through on Messenger onto the rugby page we had at the time. And the guy said, thanks very much. You've changed my life. I was really struggling. I was at the lowest point and I couldn't go on. But now you've given me hope. Can you send me the details of that charity? I sent him a holding message. Next morning, I phoned him, got hold of him. And the short end of the story was his wife had left him. His business was tanking. And he was in a very, very bad place. Now, he has a peripheral vision, which is why he's visually impaired, but actually runs a hugely, hugely successful website and social media and hosting company now. Anyway, I got him in touch with the visually impaired blind charity, a blind rugby charity. He started training. He ended up 2 years ago playing for England and winning a World Cup medal in the blind rugby. And he was that far away from going to the edge of the cliff and doing the bad thing. We don't know. And he talks about that. And he still says that one show, I helped change his life. But I did the follow-up. I did the engagement because I recognized that there was there. And we're great friends. And he builds my site now. And I've been bringing him business. And he's just a brilliant guy. And his life's in a much better place now. But had it not been for that, so when we're talking, I like to think that we're talking to one person. And I'm glad you brought that up, because we don't know somebody's journey. We don't know what they're going through, and we don't know that effect that we can have by just going live once a week and sending that message out. So,
absolutely. I just also want to add one more thing, or probably one or two things to your message. Even let's say the person or whoever is watching, and then if somebody, one individual or individuals resonate with, it doesn't matter male or female, resonate with our message. It can be one word or one sentence, but it the person shouldn't or not necessarily send you a message. At least they can change their mindset. They can see some sort of light in their life. You know what, it's a they are sitting and then they're dark, and then they feel everything is gone, nothing else there. But it's still this kind of like a conversation, openness can give some sort of hope. So they can open their eyes, and then they can see what they can switch, they can turn their direction. So they don't necessarily have to send us a message or this and that. But the point is, whoever is searching for some sort of direction, some sort of help, seeking for next move, absolutely they will receive that message directly or indirectly. Somebody may watch this video and then send it to somebody else, and then that person is waiting for this message. You never know, right? So it is possible. The only thing is that whatever we can do, we had to do. That's all. All right. Absolutely. So what do you think in today's fast moving world, many men feel pressure to perform constantly? How can men create true balance without feeling guilt or weakness? This is very, very important, Joe.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, mate. And as I said before, balance is a thing that isn't easy to do, and it isn't something that you do once in your life. It's one of those things people talk about like it's something you achieve. I found balance in my life. Have you? Okay, well, what happens when something else happens the next week? Okay, but the reality is something, you need to keep coming back to. Life shifts, life changes, pressure builds, things just change personally and professionally. And if you're not paying attention, then you can drift, without even realizing it. So you might have a balance on a Friday. 2 weeks later, you might be thinking, hang on, where's my balance gone? Just life comes at you in a different way. But it comes because it's meant to test you and give you challenges. So you need to, be acutely aware of that. I've always had a busy mind, constantly thinking. I'm an overthinker. I carry things. And if you're not careful, again, that builds up over time. And if you don't have a release out of it. So I have learned that the hard way. So for me, Sivam, I've had to try and simplify that. And it's an ongoing journey. And it starts with awareness. So recognizing when something feels off. I know myself now when something is feeling off. So it's that awareness and recognizing it. Then there's, the boundaries. So being able to protect your own time, your energy, your headspace. And then the third part of that is the reset. So giving yourself permission to step back, to recalibrate and to go again. That's something I've been exploring more through the 5 pillars of alignments and the reset room. Just helping people understand that you don't fix everything at once. You go through changes and stages in your life, and you need to revisit that regularly because your own sixth sense tells you when you're not in a good place. So you need to listen to yourself. I think once you accept that, things become a lot more manageable. So again, like I say, one of the ways I've started making sense of it all for myself is through the 5 pillars of alignment, which, I don't, are we going to stick the, are we going to put the infographic up? So here we go. Let me just, excuse me, let me just Right, the 5 pillars of alignment. Okay, so the 5 pillars are physical alignment, mental alignment, nutritional, financial, and social alignment. Let's focus on those first. Now, what happens in life is different things will happen to us. So, for example, if you take my heart attack and triple heart bypass, that's physical alignment. That's an internal issue, really. Physical alignment. You've got to look after your strength, your mobility, your sleep, recovery, energy. Building a strong, resilient body that supports the mind and purpose. What happened to me was I had a physical malalignment, so I had the problems with the heart, but it was caused by something else, and it had a knock-on effect, and that was the mental alignment. It had a massive mental health knock-on, and so when something physical happens, it can affect your mental, because you can't be as active as you were. So and when most people aren't physical, and the mental health is affected, they'll eat poorly or they'll drink poorly, so it's affecting the nutritional alignment. They're buying food and drink rubbish, from takeaways and alcohol and stuff, which is affecting financially, or they can't work because there's a physical problem. This is just an example. And then, of course, there's the social aspect of things, because when you're going through the physical or mental or nutrition or the financial, you don't necessarily socially align as well. So what happens in life, it's that domino effect. Something can happen in the mental alignment. So you can be struggling with stress, and anxiety and all of those things. And when you're mentally not in the right place, you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to do those physical things. You don't sleep well. Again, you're then more likely to not eat and drink healthily. That's affecting your finances. And a lot of time it's affecting the malalignment of your social ability. So it's that domino effect. And one of the things that I found was, if you talk to a specialist in any of those areas, and nothing against them, but you'll speak to a mental health specialist, and all they're interested in is their little bit of that pillar. But actually, they don't look at the wider effect of the pillars of alignment, and they don't look at whether another pillar is causing that effect. Does that make sense? And it's that domino effect, or that siloed effect within each of those pillars. Whether it's mental, physical, or even just showing up out day to day, all of those things can affect everything else. So we need to go at different stages in our life. What I did then was, I took this, and I'm working with a girl from the States, Christina Vidovich, who runs a global Women Getting Visible movement. And we talk about the men's movement and the women's movement all the time. And we developed the Reset Room based on the 5 pillars of alignment. And the personal, and so when I said before about when you know where you've got an issue and you need to reset, there's either the personal reset, which is the internal side, and there's the professional reset, which is the external expression. So resetting your body, resetting your mind, resetting your habits, your relationships, your purpose, that's you internally. And then the professional side, the external, resetting your own visibility, your strategy, your systems, your growth, your legacy. And that's, we don't need to overcomplicate this. We just need to understand that the pillars of alignment will come at us at different stages and different times. We know there's an issue. We then need to look at how we reset. So what we've done is we have set up on TikTok a small channel called the Reset Room. And we're building that. And when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can go live and use TikTokers. And we'll do it twice weekly, a 7 to 10 minute live every Tuesday, looking at the personal reset and how you can do that. Every Thursday, looking at the professional reset. In the meantime, we've recorded some small 25 to 30 second clips, and they go out once every couple of days under the Reset Room on TikTok, just to give people a bit of a thought process of, it's one honest reset at a time. And that's why it's important that we do that and we find that balance. No massive answers, just being able to listen to ourselves, knowing when something's not right, looking at this. And I'm happy to if people want this this PDF to be able to take away and just pin somewhere in their office, carry with it in, fold it up, print it off, fold it up, and carry it with them. And when they're just every week, Sunday night, just look at that and say, okay, am I aligned in those areas, or where am I feeling a little bit off? What do I need to do? And I think those type of things that we encourage people to do will help go a long way. And that interaction shapes clarity, well-being, and direction. There's a lot to
Absolutely. It is very important. I like that. I love that, because the thing is, like, you can see it. It's not a one time, but you have to see it over and over again, because a lot of things in the day, we from the morning when you get up, the time you go to bed, it's a lot of things you had to go through it, and then by the time you forget it. So you had to see one by one every day, and then remind yourself, and then even at least one by one you can work on it. You can start work on it, and then see, as you said, where is it missing, or where do you want to feel. It's a well, sometimes we are confused with balancing. Nowadays, a lot of people talking about balancing, but at the same time that your mind will tell you, how to balance. You don't have to look for so many, TikTok videos, or YouTube videos, or anything. By the time you end up with, it's no nonsense. At the end, your mind, your body get bored, and then you're tired. So it's better something like this, very simple, and then all is there, and then you can see it. And then even if you have some questions, or any confusions, of course you need some sort of guidance. You need to
Professional
talk
help,
to
even some of
them.
those, yeah.
You can get help. It's a chain reaction, basically, right? Because when we are missing here, it will affect in some ways not only yourself, but also the people around you and your work. Everything is a chain reaction. It's inside out. So it is it's very, very important. I like that.
And that's why when we did the reset room, we looked at internal and external, so personal internally and professionally the external, because of that affects. We take professionally, but it's that external factor to your family, your friends, your business, work, everything like that. And just to remind people that that wasn't written by a health professional, a mental health professional, a financial advisor. That was written by me based on my journey. So that's a 62-year-old who's been through the mill, who knows what it's like. And I needed to articulate down. And I originally wrote that about, it was about sort of 5 years ago, after all the events, when I was diagnosed, after the heart problems, was diagnosed with PTSD, all of these things. And it was called the 5 Pillars of Health. But over time, I think it's more about an alignment thing, and things grow from that. So that's from a person who's done the journey, and that works for me. And I'm sure that if people take that, and it's just an example, people will be able to take one of those pillars of alignment and develop that actually themselves. And that's all it's for. It's to give people a star point to them, to be able to do those sorts of things, picking up the phone, speaking to somebody, connecting, being able to identify. We need to listen to our internal bodies. We're very clever. Our brains are so powerful. And you're right what you said before, my friend. Listen to ourselves, because when it tells us, we should listen rather than bottling it up and then just, keeping it like that. So there's no right or wrong. It's whether it works or doesn't work. And if whatever you're doing at the moment isn't working, find something that does work for you and rewrite your own rule book. And that's all I did with that model.
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes we confuse, or when we look at a picture like this, or we had to focus everything at once, and then we had to be 100% balance everything. Or tick mark, tick mark, tick mark, here. Okay, I'm pass. So no, it is very hard. It's not easy. So at least take your time, and then just one step at a time, and then see where you feel, and then where you connect, where you resonate with one small point, and then go from there. So that's an easy way to navigate the action, the map, the mind map. It's really awesome. Of course, we're going to share it, probably. I'm going to display his contact details later on, so you guys can reach out to him, and then get that done. Thank you for sharing. It's very, very powerful, and also it's came from lived experiences, so it's a really awesome. Yeah. So, at what point does a man realize the version of himself he is being living as no longer fits who he needs to become? What do you think?
I think again it comes back down to that sixth sense inside. You know yourself when the way you are isn't working for you, and therefore the way you are isn't working for the world as well. I think that's probably about as simple as it gets, Sivam, to be honest. Because again, you can overcomplicate this for over and over and over. But the best version of you, well, there's two sides to this, really. Let me think. The best version of you is when you're in a happy place, when you're in a good place. When it goes back, all of these things overlap, don't they? When you've got balance in your own life, and when you're happy, other people around you are happy. I think sometimes, though, when you're not in a good place, you've got to also, though, look. It's easy to look internally, and we should, but we've also got to look at those factors outside. In life, you can be internally driven or you can be externally motivated, and sometimes that external motivation can be negative, and that might be by a loved one around you, that might be by work, that might be by other, that might be by your beliefs, because without getting into politics and religion, we also know that that being involved in certain ways, there's pressure on. So you can be internally driven to a point, but you've got to be able to walk away from the things that are negatively affecting you. And I think that's probably harder sometimes than the internal bit, because the internal bit you can look at, but how do you deal with the externally motivating things when they're a negative factor? So I think there's two sides to the accepting and listening to your own sixth sense, your own mind. Sometimes the mindset manifests itself in a physical way, so you can be feeling ill because there's things affecting you here. It comes out in a physical manifestation. But you've also got to look around. If you're in a negative place, a negative environment, you've got to really try and just walk away from those individuals, extract yourself if you can, and where you can. We're on this earth for a good time, my friend, not a long time. And I think that again comes back down to the balance, and that's not always something easy to deal with when you're in a belief system, or you're in a relationship, or there's some external factor. I'm trying to be polite here and keep on the right balance, but these things affect, and sometimes we've been spending all evening, which is fab, talking about how we as boys and men deal, and most of that's internally. But we can't shy away from the fact that there's a lot of external motivations which can also massively have that knock-on effect to us internally. And I think we've just got to be cognizant of that, and where you can, because that's very difficult to walk away from an external issue where you are in the middle of something that you've been brought up with all your life. So I'll take it one stage further. And I always try and give a balanced view. I was born into a Christian family. I was brought up as a Roman Catholic in a sort of an Irish British family. It's great. And I have my own beliefs and I have my own conversations with the greater being that I think is there. But I have been around the globe, and I have been in hostile and benign environments, and I have seen the best and worst of humanity. And an awful lot of it, unfortunately, is through belief systems. I have seen Christian belief systems split in the part and do dreadful things to each other. I've seen the same with Muslims. I've seen that it's just, and now I am more interested in the human being that I meet. I don't care what your race is, your religion is, your gender, what your beliefs are. Are you a good individual? Do you need help that I can help with? And that's what drives me moving forward. Now at 62, having experienced the whole pile of good, bad, or indifferent things, now it is about how can I help another fellow human being? And, you know, it's a very difficult one, but I think that external motivation is something that we really need to have mentioned tonight, because that might be affecting a lot of people, which then affects them massively internal if all of that is a balanced approach to what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so beautiful, because the thing is, like, a lot of people nowadays, especially men, I would say everybody, but mainly we're talking about men. We are running around, we are running all day long, and then we don't know what we are doing, and then we don't have self-awareness, and then by the time we, end of the day, when we come back and then sit down and then realize what's going on, it's almost your energy is gone. So it is, you had to know what's going on, not only within yourself but also outside, inside. So it is very important, though. It is because a lot of people, even when they are going through some sort of a life challenges, but not everybody is willing to or ready to share. So that's what I was going to say, because not only the nowadays a lot of people making videos and live stream and things like that, but at least some people come forward and then see whatever they can share, because what they understand, somebody else is going through some sort of situation, so they just want to share, they just want to help them, right? Same way like you are doing right now, is you've been there, and then you want to help other people too. It is awesome, because you never know who is watching and then who is going to take some message from here and then change their mindset or life. We never know. We don't need to know, right? So
No.
it's very important. So let's quickly move up. Do you think one of the biggest challenges for men today is not a lack of emotion, but a lack of languages to express it?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a big part of it, to be honest. It's not that men don't feel things. We do, men and boys, but a lot of us were never really, again, we were never really given the tools or the language to understand or express what's going on internally. So what happens is emotions don't disappear. They just come out differently. So before, frustration, withdrawal, silence sometimes, and we're not always acutely aware of what is. How do we put that message out? You see, once you start giving things a name, whether it's pressure, doubt, overwhelm, it actually takes some of the weight off. But it's identifying that in yourself and in others, because when you're no longer just feeling something, you're starting to understand it. When that sensation is in there, again, all of these things we talked tonight overlap. Every single little bit of it. If it feels off, it's likely to be off. Your previous question you asked me, I think it's when something stops working properly, when you stop working properly, when you stop thinking. even if it's something small, you're thinking, why is that eating away at me? And I think they're the times that we need to sort of stop and take stock and look and say, okay, well, what's affecting me? Because if we don't, we'll just let it grow and fester inside, and that's when it becomes difficult.
Absolutely. I'm actually letting everybody knows I'm displaying the contact details, your LinkedIn profile, and also the livestreamacademy.org, and then phone number and the website and an email address. Please, reach out to him. And then if you have any questions or concern or comments, just feel free, reach out to him. Right. So if a man listening wants to make a change today, what's one small step he can take that makes a real life difference? So,
great question. I think the simplest place to start is awareness. Just taking a step back and asking yourself, how am I actually doing right now? It goes back to that inner feeling, that inner sixth sense. It's like, there's just something, how am I actually doing right now? Get that model out to the 5 pillars of alignment or something else that you found. Anything that's going to help you identify what it is, not what you tell everybody else, but honestly for yourself, because most of the time, we're busy pushing on that we don't even check in with ourselves. Like I did for so long, like I still tend to do. I tend to sort of check in on other people, when people say to me, how are you doing? I say, fantastic and getting better. That's my stock response. Fantastic and getting better. But actually inside, there's a lot of times when I'm struggling, but I don't want to share that with people because they've got their own journeys. And sometimes I need to just open up even myself a little bit more and take my own advice, from once you check in on yourself and you accept that there's an issue, from there, it might just be something small. Having a conversation, sharing it with your best mate or, somebody in your sports club, your partner, hopefully. Although with your partner, it can be slightly different, especially if you're a man. Taking some time out, acknowledging that something needs to change. I think it doesn't have to be big one. It just has to be an honest one. And that comes back down to that reset, personal and professional. It's just one honest reset at a time. I think that's the answer for that one.
Yeah. One thing is that you had to accept that fact. Okay, you know what? If you are going through some sort of situation or struggling or suffering, yes, you know what? Yes, I am going through, and then recognize it, accept it, and then that's the way you can actually come out or even seek for help, right? So that's very important. If you don't agree or if you don't accept it or I don't care, or if you leave it behind, and then next thing is that it's a bigger trouble or in a deeper situation though. So you don't want to see yourself in that situation. I have a few announcements before our final questions. I will come back to you. Stay there. We have opened up this one watching right now is sharing your life journey. The live talk show is on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Any walks of life, anybody can come and then share your life journey. It's always welcome. And then there's a Tamil talk show, Billy. It's on Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And then monthly men's group meeting only for men, by men, second Saturday of every month from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern time through Zoom. No recordings. Please join through Zoom. The link is available on our Facebook page and group. There are no limitations on gender, age, nationality, or ethnicity. People from all walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you would like to be a guest on any of our shows or are interested in joining our organization, whether directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. The phone number is 226-289-8784. Again, 226-289-8784. Email address info@voiceman360.org. Website is www.voice360.org. Social media, Facebook, we have group and page. Join our group. You can see our regular activities there. And so other social media platforms are Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voice360. There are more than 600 episodes on various topics, so you can watch it and then you can learn. Coming back to you, Yo. So, how are you helping your clients? Can you share more details about your business live stream solution, please?
Yeah, so we help clients. I'm what they call a digital engagement strategist. So I'm involved in digital engagement and visibility. So we help businesses, individual businesses and organizations to gain more clarity online, because a lot of what people do is they are online, but it's not structured. There's no clarity there to what they're doing. So what we do is there's a thing called the visibility triangle. So the first top of that is on content. So we would use live streaming as a service, Lars, as the basis. And we would do a show like this, and then we would do a number of short video clips from that, 30 seconds through to 2 minutes, that you can repurpose on other platforms or use as a link back to the main show. You can write a blog article that accompanies that show or that series, download it as a podcast. So effectively, you can do one conversation, one piece of work, and get a month's work from that. And then once you've got that done, it's all about the search, and everybody overcomplicates search. So search engine optimization, etc. We have our own proprietary, simple layperson's content intelligence search and AI discovery framework. So everything that goes out, you do all the content, and you make sure that when it's going out, it's going to be seen. And then the third part of that is showing people how to do engagement online, doing that follow-up piece. So we would start with that, and we would do a digital engagement and visibility review. We would look at your website, all your socials, not for a website review like a website specialist would do, but we would look and see, is your message clear? Are you showing up regularly? Is the content varied? Can it be found properly? And then we'll give you a detailed report. And so that's the first stage. And then from there, we would then normally recommend you would do a 3-month digital engagement and visibility program. And we would do 3 monthly shows and all of that package in between each month, a bit of work. And then at the end of the 3 months, you have more clarity. You're showing up. You've got that content out there, and people are getting used to you being in those different platforms. And we can multicast that live stream across up to 50 different locations. And most importantly, including on your website. Why your website? Because, excuse me, social media is just a funnel. If you go live just to Facebook, for example, Facebook will only show your post to 1 to 3%, 1 to 3% of your followers, because that's what we call digital tenancy. You are a tenant of those social platforms. And yes, they're important. There are funnels, but at the end of the day, they can close you down any stage. They're restricting how many people see you. If you go to those and you go live on your website, over time, you drive your community. That's what you're building. You're driving your community to your site, where they're more likely to look around, click on the button, subscribe, join your private members community online, and all those things. And that's how we help businesses tell their stories, get visible, get clarity. And it's not difficult to do at all. But it's a system and a process, and that's what we're there to do at Livestream Solutions, Livestream Academy.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, I was displaying so people can go and check it out. It's their phone number is there, and then email address is here, and then their website is here. And even if you want to connect with him on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn, absolutely, you can go ahead and then please do so, because as you explained, a lot of areas, a lot of people, they don't have a clear direction idea. So it's always good to get some support from the experts. So please do so. Just a final thing, just a one word questions, and then we will finish with one question though. So fatherhood, one word.
Responsibility,
Vulnerability,
vulnerability, honesty,
masculinity,
balance,
right? Healing,
process.
legacy.
Oh, that's easy. That one is impact. If anybody ever asks you what you want that to be in your life, for me, it always has to be impact. That I've had an impact. And I loved what you said before. It's not about mass numbers, but if you've had an impact on one person's life, then that's priceless, my friend.
Exactly. Yes. So the last one. No, it's kind of like a similar, but this is kind of like a different way of putting it. If you could leave one message for every man and boy listening right now, especially those silently carrying pressure, pain, or self-doubt, what would you want them to remember most?
Brilliant question to finish on to them. What I would say to anybody watching tonight who is struggling is you are not behind and you're not alone. Whatever you're carrying, pressure, responsibility, things you haven't spoken about, anything, you don't have to carry it all by yourself. You know, life has a way of reminding you what matters, sometimes gently, sometimes not. And when that happens, you either adjust or you keep carrying things the same way. But sooner or later, take my word for it, as a lived experience, it will all come crashing down with you when you least expect it. Strength, my dear friends, strength is not about holding everything in. It's about knowing when to speak, when to ask, when to listen to yourself, and when to reset. And the sooner you understand that, the lighter things become, the better you show up, not just for yourself, but more importantly for the people around you as well.
Absolutely, beautifully said. I love that, because you have the second life, so as you have in your word, in your name, yo. This is always great to have you, and then great pleasure to have you. Whatever we discussed, especially the messages from you, it's really worth it, especially the chart. See if anybody was interested, absolutely, and then we can share through our platforms, either social media or through anyhow we can share it. He's really willing to share with you guys though, so please reach out to him. And again, thanks a lot of messages, and same request to everybody. You are watching, we know, but at the same time, please share with other people, so this way we can reach out more people, we can help more people, we can save more people. Thanks a lot, Joe, for tonight, coming in and sharing a lot of messages. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. It was a genuine honor, and I think it's really important what you're doing. Just to reiterate that again, and may the work that you do continue changing people's lives, one person at a time.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Thank you, guys. See you next time.